Welcome in, Chiefs Kingdom, to Cheifs Latest, your one-stop spot for everything Kansas City Chiefs, usually in 15 minutes or less. It is your host, Calvin Silvers. Welcome in. Happy Wednesday. I get it, middle of the week, but hey, we're closer to the weekend, and it's going to be a big weekend. Think about it. Chiefs versus Broncos, implications on the AFC West standings, implications on our chances of making the playoffs. There's a lot riding on this game. We're going to dive into it all, but before we do, you guys know the drill. If you haven't already, or maybe you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. Not only do we have daily videos here at Cheifs Latest Monday through Friday, we also have a very specific goal we're trying to reach. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. That's right, 1,000 subscribers by the end of this month. We're clearly on pace thanks to you guys, your love, your support, the likes, the comments. It's been unreal. I can't thank you guys enough, so if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, as it not only helps me in the channel, but it's going to help you stay up to date with everything Kansas City Chiefs. Now, there's a hot rumor that's coming out of the facilities in Denver, and that's regarding their running back J.K. Dobbins, who they are considering placing on IR, which would be a 4-game minimum if they were to place him there. Now, early vibes after Thursday's injury that he suffered from a hip drop tackle at first was optimistic, but now we see that that might be wishful thinking. Now, Sean Payton and his crew have been very hush-hush about injuries and what's going on with his team since his arrival back in 2023. So even today's presser, Wednesday, it might not prove anything to us. We'll see how far into it he goes, but speculation says that it's likely a mid-foot sprain, and that comes with different levels of seriousness. Of course, he has to get another look at by a doctor, but if Dobbins does end up missing at least this game, he's going to have some rest and a chance to recover because the Broncos, they don't play in Week 12. They're going to have their bye week, so he's been efficient this season. He's fifth in rushing in the entire league, 772 yards or 77.2 yards a game. He's also tallied 4 touchdowns. But injuries have been his main concern. It's been an issue with him. He has had 45-plus games that he's missed in 5 years. Now, with the Broncos, they're going to miss his pass blocking ability as well. We know that Sean Payton loves a back that can block. And he loves that because you're allowing to buy Bo Nix a few extra seconds. And we know that if you give Nix a few extra seconds, he's usually pretty good. Now, hopefully, the reliance on RJ Harvey and others that they have in the backfield won't provide that same pass protection or even the decisiveness. Hopefully, it risks more sacks and stalled drives here for the Broncos. This makes a slow starting team even a little bit more likely to fall behind. Then you're going to need Bo Nix to throw into difficult coverages because you know that they have to throw. You drop back into coverage, force Bo Nix to make boneheaded decisions, which, yes, he also does from time to time. Tyler Beatty, Jaleel McLaughlin, they have 3 carries combined. So they really rely on Harvey's 25 receptions, 175 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's a threat out of the backfield with his hands. However, Harvey brings a 34% run success rate. That's dead last if he had enough carries to qualify, versus Dobbins, who's at 53.6%. That was 17th in the league. The Broncos' running game, it may not seem like a major concern. That might not be the biggest thing when you look at the scouting report, but when this team is more balanced, and you don't have to rely on Nix to throw 40-plus every time, they are really hard to stop. The Broncos are 9th in rush yards, 128.6, and they're 7th in yards per carry with 4.8. KC, when you're looking at their run defense, 12th versus the run, 104.6 yards allowed. They're 18th in yards per carry at 4.3. But James Cook, he just ran 114 on us. So yes, Dobbins, he is no Cook. But also, he's not a slouch in the league. Remember, 5th in the entire NFL in rushing yards. So when this team is more balanced, yes, they're more dangerous. Yes, Bo Nix doesn't have to throw 40-plus times. Again, he's sometimes erratic, especially if there's pressure on him. Also, the red zone duo of having both backs will now be gone. So it makes the Broncos offense just a little bit more one-dimensional here if Dobbins can't play. So if he's out, it's a victory for Kansas City even before the game is played. The pass rush, which has been abysmal this year, won't have to deal with that extra blocking. Nix might have to be relied on to throw more, and hopefully our coverage will step up. And Harvey's efficiency in the run game aspect kills drives for him. Yes, he's tough to cover in the red zone when it comes to his hands, but when you look at his running game as a whole, it's really nothing that impressive. All right, we're going to get into some more rumors and whatnot, but not regarding a player. Yeah, that's right, regarding some coordinators and coaches. Now, for years, Steve Spagnuolo has been linked to head coaching jobs. In fact, he's earned to be receiving head coaching jobs, especially with this recent one with the Giants. Now that the Giants have fired Brian Dable, Ian Rappaport says that Spags is on the short list as the replacement in the future. Rappaport said, quote, Giants looking to regain that Tom Coughlin era greatness. Spagnuolo and Antonio Pierce are names to watch, end quote. Yes, the Giants need an offensive mind for rookie quarterback Jackson Dart, but Spags has some history, of course, winning a Super Bowl under Coughlin, but his head coaching gig in St. Louis, 10-38 with the Rams, that was long ago, 15 years ago. We don't really need to bring that up or remember that, but it still doesn't look the best. He's obviously changed as a coach since then, but he was also the interim head coach in New York back in 2017. Rashad Jennings to TMC even said, quote, he wouldn't be surprised if they bring Spags back to lock down defense and get an offensive-minded coordinator to take over the offense, end quote. Yeah, that makes sense because Spags would walk into Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter. That's a dream front right there. Reed, even last January, Andy Reid on Spags taking a head coaching job said, quote, they'll get a great coach, a great person, and he deserves another shot. I'm his biggest fan, end quote. So he already has Reed's blessing to leave if he wanted to. 3 Super Bowls with the Chiefs. His defense was the key factor getting to the last 2. I mean, he was huge there. Casey's defense is his. And at 65 years old, settled down with Reed at this point, does he even want a head coaching job? Does he even want that kind of pressure? In my book, being a candidate makes sense with the Giants' ties, Reed's endorsement. But again, 65 years old, 3 rings, you're working with Reed, you get to see Patrick Mahomes play every day. Again, I think the biggest thing is being Andy Reid's right-hand man. I don't know if he does leave. I think KC has a man that they're going to keep that's going to go out with Reid when he decides to leave. I think this is a dynamic duo. I really do not see Spagnuolo leaving. But hey, again, those ties with the Giants, who knows what kind of money they throw at him. Again, you get to work with a young quarterback. It might be a little fun there. We'll see. But what if it's not Spags that leaves? What if it's Matt Nagy? What if he jumps ships for another gig? Or what if the Chiefs finally decide to cut ties? Because there's fans like me that have kind of a love-hate relationship with the guy. I mean, I've seen people sing his praises, or at least say that it's not his fault when it comes to some of these offensive woes, and I've seen people completely throw him under the bus. But this year's underwhelming record, especially with an arguably better roster than last year, that's the perfect excuse to turn the page here. Sure, we can argue that Reid still calls the plays or calls all the plays, but regression since Matt Nagy has arrived, it's crystal clear, and it's time for a shakeup. It's time for some new, fresh ideas into the building. Here's the wild part. Again, we could stick with the Giants for his replacement, bringing up the question of what if Andy Reid brought in Brian Dable? He was Casey's offensive coordinator back in 2012, but when you look at that, it's also not pretty. He was dead last in points, but hey, he had Matt Castle and Brady Quinn at quarterback, so they really didn't give him much of a chance to show anything either. Then obviously he wasn't retained the next year with Andy Reid. But before being a head coach, he worked with Saban at Bama. He was the Bills offensive coordinator that helped Josh Allen's breakout season. That's on his resume. And he even has some early Tom Brady Patriot roots. So Dable needs a reputation rehab. Of course, he needs to get his name back out there in a clean light, not because he did anything bad, just because of how he handled the Giants situation, what his record was. So just needs a reputation rehab. KC's the spot to go. Likely going to see some winning there. You move on from Nagy's stale creativity, inject a new spark. The Chiefs could keep tabs now. They could even bring him in for a consultant role. I think there's some options there, at least to keep, again, tabs on and see how the season ends and what you want to do with Matt Nagy. And now we're back to the Chiefs deciding between either a renovated Arrowhead or a new stadium, which would likely be a dome on the Kansas side. On Tuesday, Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe, he dropped a hybrid idea to keep us here in Missouri. And I got to say, I like it. Now, we know the lease is up in January 2031, and the sales tax for an $800 million renovation was shot down last year. Kehoe's been in consistent talks with execs and has now came up with the idea of not a full dome by any means, but more of a smart weather covering. Kehoe said, quote, "There's some interesting architectural improvements to make to Arrowhead that could be conducive to an all-weather protective environment without being a full dome. Look at some of the structures that are in Europe that may have some sort of fabric device that goes over it," end quote. Well, he saw Frankfurt's Deutsche Bank Park in 2023 when the Chiefs played there with its translucent membrane roof, which can open and close on demand. It's actually pretty impressive. It keeps the outdoor vibe, but that indoor readiness for Super Bowls that the Chiefs want to bring to KC. Fans love the rough and tough weather aspect. I totally get that. Ownership knows this as well. You get the legacy that is Arrowhead as the prominent feature, but I really like this idea that Kehoe has. I think you can use newer technology to create a unique and efficient weather covering while still capturing that, feel, that historic feel that Arrowhead Stadium has. I understand the weather aspect and how Chiefs fans embrace it. I mean, look at the Miami game. If you're truly the best, though, you should win these games. And I think the loudness and the fans being on top of you is the true factor here, not really the weather. We see multiple teams play in bad weather, and it doesn't really benefit them at all. So, yes, Kehoe's hybrid, it's a good idea. You keep that Arrowhead sold, plus you add a little bit of a modern flex. You get to host Super Bowls, and you're not destroying Lamar's legacy, and the fan identity stays intact. The Chiefs, they should, and I hope will, stay in Missouri. Well, that is all that I have for you guys on this lovely Wednesday. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Again, we're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of this month. Let me know in the comments what you think about losing Spags or Matt Nagy, and do you think the Chiefs should move to Kansas and build a whole new stadium, or stay in Missouri and just renovate Arrowhead? Again, you are listening to Cheifs Latest. I am your host, Calvin Silvers, and until next time, have a good one.